what would your suggestion be to people who have those types of cards versus a Visa or a MasterCard or something like
right
that?
now, there's a lot of credit card companies. If you have decent credit or good credit, they're giving you 0%, balance transfer for 18 months. So if you happen to get yourself into credit card debt with these department stores, it might be a good idea to find one of these 0% for 18 months and transfer a balance there. Because
That's a good idea.
A lot of the department stores, you're right, they have very high interest rates.
Very high.
And the other thing they do is that if you charge, let's say your credit limit's $5,000, you go above it, they don't stop you from going above it. They allow you to go above it, right? So that's one of the, and if you go above a credit limit, it destroys your credit. It brings your scores down quite substantially.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's one thing I would do is try to find one of those 0% for 18 months and maybe try to monitor your spending on the department store cards.
Exactly. Yeah. And or, I tell people you can buy the same item that you purchased on the store credit card on your Visa, and it might slow you down because, that available amount of credit may not be there. And if you're using so many credit cards, can you really afford the items you're buying? That's another concern. So, being in mortgage banking, I'm always concerned about that. So, right, your debt to income ratio is very important. And I don't think that's something that people look at enough. What income you have coming in and what is the debt you have going out, and you don't just look at your credit card bills, but it's the overall picture.
What's the monthly payment?
What's the monthly payment, right, of everything, like, lights, gas, your rent, and then these credit cards and your insurances and car notes. And
it would make a big difference if you had a 26% rate on a $5,000 balance or a 0% rate.
That's absolutely right. A big difference.
Mortgage banking.
Yes, definitely. So these are some of the things to take into consideration. So if, those of you who are out there, if you haven't started this journey through credit, I'd say get educated before you make the pilgrimage, right? Because you want to know, because it's very important. And for those of you who have credit established, if you're in a good space, wonderful. Continue the good work. Just be careful of some of the things that can trip you up. Like, Erik, you just made a great point. If you have a $5,000 balance on a credit card and you go $510 because you purchased something and you don't realize it, it's going to have a negative impact on your credit. So try to make sure that you understand the balances that are on your accounts and what they are, and don't just because the credit card company doesn't stop you, don't just not, understand where your balance is at.
What I found over the last 4 or 5 months, I think that the biggest misconception is that people don't realize that when you charge your cards, you don't realize that when you pay the payment, as I said before, a lot of people think that the payment's going to post to your credit right away.
Right.
So I think a lot of people have a hard time not understanding, just don't know that you have to wait a certain time frame before it reflects on your credit report.
Right.
Because if you go to apply for something, you should always give that window before you apply.
Exactly. Yeah. So in other words, wait until you know when your payment cycle is, or you should know.
You can always call
the credit card company and find out, and the next day after that, you can start applying for one other card if that's what you want to do. Right. And what do you feel about that, going into 3 stores and applying for 3 cards at the same time, or applying for a credit card? You and I have talked about this, the difference. So could you talk about that?
I think nowadays they see what you're doing, and if you go apply, there's going to be an inquiry on your credit.
Right.
And if you go to one store and apply and another store and apply, they're going to see this, and they're going to wonder, why is this person going out right now and applying for all these cards? Because they're thinking you just want to get credit.
Right.
So you want to do one month, maybe wait 30 days, then do another one. So you don't have to do it all in 1 month. You have a better chance of getting approved if you wait.
Right.
And you also get a better chance of getting approved if you keep your balances a little bit lower. If you buy something, if you open up a store card and you max it out, wait a little bit, pay it off, and then wait 30 days, 45 days, and then apply for another card if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, so be strategic in how you build credit. And I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I don't think someone should have a lot of credit cards.
Well, it depends on what I mean, everyone can manage different things,
Right.
So one person can take 4 cards, one person can have 20 cards. So
That's
it
true.
really depends on what your wherewithal is as a person.
That's very true.
Right.
I've just seen such in mortgage banking, I've just seen such a mess, of people who have, all these credit card balances all over the place. And, they don't realize that, their debt to income ratio has been significantly impacted by, all these balances and payments all over the place. I don't know. I think, my opinion,
It's all about managing.
it's about how you manage, and
Right.
can you manage all that you have.
Right. And I personally don't think you need a lot of credit cards. I
Yeah.
think if you have 4 or 5 credit cards, you're good.
You're good,
And
yes.
If you can manage that,
Yes.
you're good. Because when you have credit cards and you start building your credit, they're going to start raising your limits.
Right.
Right. And so
exactly.
you don't need
all those credit cards. So be patient. It's a building process. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? Like everything in life. So don't, because, someone sent you a credit card in the mail that you applied for, run out and apply for 5 or 6 more credit cards. Take one step at a time, build your credit, and it'll be sustainable.
Agree.
Right?
Agree.
So as far as the credit part, when someone has a outstanding balance and it's gone 30 days past, and let's say they thought they made the payment and didn't, that's happened to just about everybody, or put the check in the mail and the payment center didn't get it or whatever, and it's late. Is there anything they can do about it if it's a one-time late?
There is. I would suggest calling the credit card company, and sometimes they want you to write a letter, and sometimes you can make a phone call. And if you have a legitimate argument, if something, you didn't get the bill, you made a payment, if you have a history of this, I can't say it's going to happen all the time, but sometimes they will remove a late payment from you.
Okay.
If you have consecutive late payments, or if you have a late payment, in June and then have another one in September, I mean, the odds are they're probably not going to remove it.
Okay.
Right, because
Right,
you have a
'cause
history.
yeah,
of it.
you have a
But if
history
it's
of
one
it.
time, I would always suggest giving someone a call, and I would not just talk to the customer service rep. I would ask to speak to a manager. I would try to elevate it to someone who can actually make a decision.
Right.
Because if you just call customer service, they're not going to. They're trained to say no. Sorry, we can't help.
Yes. That's true. So elevate, keep going till you get as close to the top
Don't take no for an answer.
as possible. Don't take no for an answer. And they may just take that one time late
Yes.
off of your credit.
It does happen all the time.
Yes, especially if you have a history of good credit. That's why I said, build it slowly. Make sure that you're in control.
I always suggest doing auto pay. Auto pay is a very easy thing to do.
Yes.
And if you make a certain monthly payment all the time, if you're not making large chunks of payments, but just
The same consistent payment.
You always do an auto pay. Just make sure that you cover the minimum payment.
Yes. Yes. And then that's another thing I want to talk about. Glad you brought it up. Minimum payments. Okay, so $5,000 balance, minimum payment $110 or whatever it is, $90 minimum payment. And people get frustrated because they're saying their balance isn't going down. Can you explain why their balance isn't going down?
Well, it's because of their interest rate. And whatever their interest rate is, they usually take a percentage of the interest rate towards your minimum payment.
Right.
So if your minimum payment is $112 and you're making $112, maybe
98% of that is going towards.
I don't know about 98, but a lot of it's going towards the interest rate.
That's right.
Right. So what I suggest is sometimes making 2 payments per month, if you can do that.
Yes.
Is if you start making 2 payments per month, you can start knocking it down quicker.
Right.
Right. So because instead of making the 112, maybe make a 70 and an 80. Split it up a little bit.
Right.
And that way you'll start seeing it decrease faster.
Yes.
It's a little trick. It doesn't save you a lot of money on the interest rate, but it does help show that you're making more towards the principal than the interest.
Right. And do you need to designate that you want the principal reduced?
Well, no, because if you make your minimum payment, if your minimum payment, I don't know, maybe some banks do, yes, some banks no. I don't know. That answer is a good question, actually.
Okay. So I think you should check with your bank to find out if you can do principal reduction payments. And what that means is that your payment could be reduced even faster if they allow you to, by you making just payments directly to the actual balance that you have on the card. So you would make your minimum payment, and then ask them if you can make a principal payment and see if they allow that.
But I think, excuse me, I think on credit cards, it's different than a mortgage. But on a credit card, if you make the minimum payment, the next payment goes straight to principal.
Oh, wow. That's even better. Because, on mortgages, you have to tell them.
You have to tell them.
Yes, because they'll just say, next month, where's my payment?
Exactly. But credit cards is different because you make the minimum payment of $112, and the next payment goes straight to your balance.
That's great.
Yes.
Okay, that's something I just learned. So for those of you out there, when you make your payments, make a minimum payment of however much, and then the next payment made in the same month will go towards the principal. So it'll start helping you with minimizing that outstanding large balance that you may have. So a great point.
Yes.
Okay, so I have some questions that people actually asked me to ask, and so I'm going to ask those questions. So what do people do with great credit to know about maintaining their credit? So these people have great credit, but they want to know how to maintain it.
So there's a lot of websites out there that do credit monitoring. I would suggest getting one.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of them, and I can recommend a few.
So when you call Eric, he'll recommend one to you.
But I would definitely try a monitoring system because you don't know when a medical collection may hit your credit. You may not know when a late payment might hit you. You just don't know these things if you're not keeping track of your credit.
That's very true.
And so the monitoring system allows you to know all the time what's happening. If you raise your limit on a credit card, it'll let you know, your limit's up and you got to pay it down a little bit.
Yes.
So that's a good way to maintain credit.
Yes.
I mean, that's what I would suggest.
Okay, and I want to speak directly to that because you actually have a client that you're working with that is using a suggested company to monitor. And she told me it's the best thing that has ever happened to her. She feels so in control now. She said, I'm going to keep this forever because I feel so in control. Like I know what's going on with my credit at all times.
And also each month.
So it's a great point.
Each month she gets to see her full credit report because they update
the credit report.
Correct.
So that's an excellent suggestion. And there are a lot of them out there. There are some that I'm sure that Eric, has been watching for a while, so he can make a suggestion. So when you call him to talk to him about your individual credit, that might be something you'd ask him about too, is getting a credit monitoring system, especially, for both. If you're trying to rebuild your credit or if you have great credit and you want to make sure that your great credit stays great. Because like you said, you never know. Yeah. Some bill that you thought was paid by the insurance company wasn't paid, and now it's a collection. And until they call you, you don't know it's there unless you're monitoring your credit.
I can tell you a personal story. My wife has a Neiman Marcus card, and we didn't get a bill, and they put a 30-day late on her credit. We only knew that because of the monitoring system.
Wow.
And then when we called them, we said, we never got a bill. And they said, oh, we're sorry, we'll fix it. But I would have never known. It would have gotten 60 days. There was no balance on it.
That's right.
If the monitoring system didn't let us know.
Wow. So that's a good reason to have definitely a monitoring system because people with good credit are concerned about their credit too.
Oh, yes.
And so then if there are 3 things that you would consider the worst things you can do for your credit, what would those 3 things be?
Well, the worst thing is to go late.
Yes.
I mean, if you're going late on a credit card, or a mortgage or a car.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the worst things you can do.
Right.
You can, and I always tell people that you should reach out to the credit card company, the mortgage, whoever it is, and just say, I'm having trouble, instead of missing a payment. If you know you're going to miss a payment, because they may help you out.
That's right.
You just don't know. Sometimes they're going to say, sorry, there's nothing we can do, but it never hurts to ask. Not paying medical bills is a very bad thing to do, because if you don't pay a medical bill like a copay, they may report that to your credit bureau.
Wow.
And some companies will delete it if you pay it, and some companies will not. And so a lot of the times you see people with a $26 collection, a $45 collection that destroyed their credit, brought their credit scores down 50, 60 points, when all they had to do was just take that bill and pay it. So not paying any sort of collection or even reaching out to this collection agency, I would suggest doing that.
Right. And medical can be serious.
It can be serious.
Yeah. And it could be like little small balances, like you said, $26, $23.
I see it all the time.
Wow.
And the last thing is going out and applying for a lot of things in 1 month.
In 1 month.
So, if you go get a car and then you go to a car dealership and they shop your loan around, and you think you're getting one inquiry and you get seven or eight,
yeah.
It's going to bring your – I mean, you can't really stop that from happening sometimes, but it does lower your scores when you do that.
That's
And so if
true.
you're going to go shop to 5 different car dealerships, I would not suggest that.
Right. Yeah. Because if you go, that's true. Because each one of them is going to take your credit, run it, and then it's gonna go to their companies that they use, and you could wind up with 10 or 15 credit inquiries from one day of car shopping.
The other thing is when mortgage bankers. I was one of them, so I can say the same thing. But they tell you, oh, you can go shop around the mortgage for 3 or 4 a month. It's not going to affect you.
Right.
It's just not true.